Not quite the Valentine's Day box of chocolates Manchester City fans were hoping for today. I think it's fair to say that. A combo package of Steve Nicol and Shaka Hislop here in the studio. I'm Adrian Healy. The headline news reverberating around the football world. Manchester City banned by UEFA for 2 years from the Champions League, starting from next year after overstating its sponsorship revenue in its accounts and failing to cooperate in the investigation that followed. Gab Marcotti and Julien Laurens are with us. Jules, I want to start with you. Your initial reaction. This investigation has been going on for well over a year. Are you surprised by the severity of action by UEFA?
I am surprised, although I expected City to be sanctioned by UEFA. I think that was pretty clear. I think even the club expected a sanction as well. Maybe not, and surely not to that degree. I mean, this is 2 years. If it was confirmed after the appeal that City will lodge very soon now with the CAS, if that was confirmed, 2 years without Champions League, that's a loss of earnings of probably around 300 million euros a year, which is a lot of money for a club, for any club in the world, but for a club like Manchester City as well. And not only financially, it's a huge hit, but also you would think some players might have to leave the club. Pep Gaurdiola will certainly question his future as well if there's no Champions League football there for the next 2 seasons. So potentially the consequences of this sanction by UEFA are incredibly big.
Gab, there's a lot to digest here. Just give us your initial reaction.
Well, look, as Jules said, we have to wait until this sentence becomes definitive, until we get a final verdict. And that won't happen until the Court of Arbitration of Sport rule, and that presumably will happen in the next 2-3 months. City could then take this even further. They've hinted at the possibility of taking further legal action. This would probably have to happen in the Swiss court system, and there we're uncharted waters. Frankly, nobody knows what's going to happen. I think we knew that they were going to get some kind of penalty. That was very likely. 2 years does seem a lot, but then we've never really been in this situation. This is not like the Paris Saint-Germain case or like the AC Milan case. This is not a case of a club that has breached financial fair play by a lot. This is a case where a club, and City strenuously deny these accusations, is effectively accused of committing accounting fraud, of submitting false accounts to UEFA, of trying to trick UEFA. So this is extremely serious. If this is held up by CAS, and I think that's probably a big part of the reason why the punishment was so hefty.
Jules, what's your feeling on how the rest of Europe is responding to UEFA coming down with this force, with this severity on Manchester City?
Well, I think it's a very interesting question and debate. If you see the tweet that Javier Tebas, the president of La Liga, puts out, where he was almost celebrating the fact that Man City were so heavily punished today, and you also mentioned PSG in his message too. I think a lot of big European clubs were not happy by the way PSG, for example, and Manchester City had spent their money and clearly overspent as well, on top of what Gab just said, maybe even fraudulently, made fraud in their accounts. So I think there might be a few big clubs in Europe who would welcome that sanction and say, you know what, there are rules now, and you have to go by those rules. Otherwise, whoever you are, wherever you come from, you're going to get heavily punished. And maybe because, like Gab said, this is the first example really that we have of this kind of sanction and this kind of incidents, then this will be the first time of, okay, if anything does, go along the rules of financial fair play and accountancy and things like that, this is what's going to happen. You're going to get heavily punished. And I think a lot of big clubs will welcome that.
Jules, very specifically concerning PSG, do you think there's some concern in the city of Paris right now?
There's no concerns. They're not under investigation anymore. They were for a long time, and they had to pay a hefty fine as well. But they know that they still looked out by UEFA and by the Chamber of Financial Fair Play regulation, if you want. So they know they have to be careful, and they know they have to be cautious, and they can't do crazy things with their money and with their accounts, and they need to balance their books, and they know they have to do that really well. Otherwise, they're going to get done as soon as they just go over the line or over the boundary. So they're not concerned, but they just know that, like they've been doing for the last 2 years, they will have to be very careful for the years to come as well.
Gab, as you already suggested, this is just the beginning, perhaps, of this process. The Court of Arbitration for Sport will be the next step. City are going to appeal. I've read differing projections as to how long this might take. Some suggesting it could even drag on into next season. Do you see it that way?
Well, I think it's in UEFA's interest to have for this not to drag on. So I think they will probably request an expedited hearing. I don't see the benefit to Manchester City to have it drag on because obviously if they believe that they're innocent and if they believe that they can prove it, the reality is even if the Court of Arbitration of Sport finds them guilty, they want to take this further, they can. I mean, it would be nearly unprecedented and it would have very serious consequences, but that's what they're entitled to do. So no, I mean, I would expect this to be wrapped up certainly by the summer, and yeah, I'm going to preempt your next question. It would mean that if Manchester City finish in the top four, then in the Premier League, the team that finishes fifth will get to play in next season's Champions League, and also, and we may get this in a bit, Manchester City could also potentially face punishment from the Premier League as well.
Guys, you've digested it all. What do you make of what you've heard?
I'm not sure we've digested it all. I think there's still so much more to this, which the boys have alluded to. And to Gab's final point, as much as it may be in UEFA's best interest to have this done quickly, I'm not sure that City, though Gab thinks they will want to get it done quickly, I'm not sure that it's in their best interest. And listen, as we sit here, this is brand new. City probably still trying to figure out their strategy as well. They might decide that it makes sense to kind of drag this out as much as possible and at least see yourselves involved in Champions League for next season while CAS figures this out, and then who knows how things develop over the next couple of years in trying to challenge that. I just feel that right now it's new, it's unprecedented, and everybody, ourselves included, is still trying to figure things out.
How stunned were you, Stevie? Just describe how stunned you were when you heard 2 years.
To be honest, the first thing that went through my mind is how is this going to affect City on the field? Yes, we can talk about all the financials and everything else, but how is this going to affect Pep Gaurdiola for the next couple of years? On the one hand, if they let this drag out, if you're a top-class player, are you going to go and sign for a side who may not be in the Champions League for almost half a year contract? I think that's huge for Manchester City, particularly right now when they clearly need to sign players to get them back to where they were. That's a stumbling block as well, regardless of the financial side of it.
I mean, to that point, and I've heard a couple of names already kind of thrown into the mix. Kevin De Bruyne. Does Kevin De Bruyne stay on, regardless of how much he's on? Let's just assume that somebody can match his paycheck. Does he want to stay on without Champions League football for two seasons? Raheem Sterling. Does Pep Gaurdiola, and we've been speculating about his own future for the last couple of weeks, does he stay on if Champions League isn't in City's immediate future?
Gab?
I mean, I think that's an excellent point, and I don't think it's just about players saying, "Well, no, I want to play in the Champions League," or indeed Guardiola saying, "I want to win another Champions League." I think there's also a financial component. Jules, I think earlier said 300 million. I think it's actually 300 million, likely over 2 years, because City earned about 100 million from the Champions League last year. You've got so that would be 2 seasons of that. That'd be 200 million plus the 30 million euro fine. Plus, they would likely be hurt in terms of sponsorships and the damage to the brand, gate receipts of Champions League games. So, if you're looking at a shortfall of maybe around 150 million euros per season, that's about 25% of City's total turnover. So that basically means that you need to reduce costs by 25%. They might not have the choice to keep all these players, let alone whatever Pep Guardiola wants to do. And I think that's extremely damaging. And then there's a Premier League angle to it, which is the Premier League licensing, based on that, they don't have the same financial fair play rules, but you still have to submit a set of accurate accounts. Now, if the Court of Arbitration for Sport finds those accounts that were submitted to UEFA to be fraudulent, and they submitted the same accounts to the Premier League, they could be in trouble with the Premier League as well. That could mean a points penalty. It could mean more fines. So if you're a City fan, you better put a lot of faith in the fact that what they're saying is right, that their accounts are whiter than white, and that this is all a bunch of clubs out to get them, and that justice will prevail.
Thanks so much for watching ESPN on YouTube. And for more sports highlights and analysis, be sure to download the ESPN app. And for premium content and live streaming, subscribe to ESPN Plus.